Welcome to another episode of the Beyond Threat podcast by Bleckmann. I am your host, Erik Jansen Steenberg, and as always, I'm thrilled to have you with us today. In each episode of the Beyond Threats, we take a deep dive into the topics that are shaping all that has to do with fashion and lifestyle logistics. And today, we're diving into what makes the fashion industry so cutting edge. We will explore how innovation, digital transformation, and for example, consumer behavior changes is driving a change across fashion and beauty. For that purpose, I am today joined by Anthony Hawman and Lauretta Roberts, founders of TheIndustry.fashion and TheIndustry.beauty. They will take us by the hand and discuss what is next for brands, retailers, and the entire fashion ecosystem. Thank you guys for joining us today.
Such a pleasure here, Eric. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's great to see you, Eric. Thanks for having us.
Thanks. Yeah, and of course, we have been working together quite some time now, and we're practically friends. But can you guys, for the audience, nevertheless, briefly introduce yourselves, the industries, and as a bonus, list the main trends which you are currently spotting in our sector?
All right, I'll kick off and tell you a bit about us. I'll let Ant add a bit extra, and then I'll come back to those trends that you discussed. As you said, I'm Lauretta. I'm the co-founder of TheIndustry.fashion and TheIndustry.beauty. We are a business-to-business platform for brands and retailers operating in the UK retail market, basically. We do have international retailers, but we write everything from a UK perspective. And you are our friends. We're not practically friends. We are good friends with you. We work with you very closely. We have done for a number of years. On a day-to-day basis, we deliver news and insights to our audience. So it will be breaking news, interviews, opinion pieces, insights, data, everything I think they need to know to be up to speed on what's going on in their market. And we just want to help them do a better job. You know, there's a lot of challenges out there that they've got to deal with. So we just help them through our content to navigate that on a less regular basis, not every day, thank heavens, but often we stage events, and they can be network events and conference style events. We stage sets of awards for both fashion and beauty, and we do smaller things like round tables for C-level executives within the industry and various things like that. So we're very active, we're very close. We like to facilitate knowledge exchange and networking between our audiences. And do you want to speak about how we collaborate with people like Bleckmann?
Yeah, of course. Like Lauretta says, we just want to really help our markets to do better business. And the best way to do that is for us to be able to, link them up with great suppliers like you guys at Bleckmann, Eric. So, we're very mindful of how we do that. And we just, like I said, really want to help the market. So we run, like Lauretta says, we run dinners, we run conferences, we run forums, all of it's content led because that's what we do and that's our kind of bread and butter. But yeah, the main aim is to really help the market and make sure that they're the best informed they can be to do better business.
As for those trends, there's a lot to talk about, and I'm sure we'll get into more detail in some of them as we move through the podcast. But I suppose I've been sitting here writing today about the market, and I learn something every day. One of the things that has struck me personally, particularly in the UK market, and when you're looking at that younger generation of shopper that we're all trying to attract and understand, is quite pleasing to me, is this shift almost back. We're not quite where we want to be, but that shift back to physical retail, I've been quite surprised actually, that Gen Z and the younger end of the millennial cohort likes a shop. Because I think during the pandemic, that's really when we first started working with you guys in the wake of that, and it was all about that boom in e-commerce. And e-commerce is still strong, it's still growing, but it's definitely leveled off, and we're starting to see a return to stores. And here in the UK, we're starting to see quite a lot of nice store openings. We lost a lot of legacy retailers. They just disappeared from the high street altogether. Some survived as digital-only brands, some just disappeared. But we've started to see some really interesting challenger brands, be they UK brands, be they international brands, particularly in London, coming into London and opening very, very beautiful stores. So that's a trend that I'm quite excited by and interested in. And you've got an observation when we were chatting the other day about something that struck you as well.
Yeah, I just think that, you're right. You're absolutely right. I think people now want experience again, don't they? And
But
yes, of course, e-commerce is efficient and it's, get it delivered to your home and all that good stuff. But I think that, there are loads of brands out there now that are creating, cafes within their stores. And it's kind of, the shopping has become secondary. It's like come and have a matcha or come and have a iced coffee or whatever it is. And it's really about engaging with the audience. And to be honest, I think you're right. It is about Gen Z and those younger people, but even I love to go in there and see what they're doing. And I just think that yeah.
Young at heart.
Eric, you're so kind. Yeah, exactly. No, but yeah, you're right. I just think it's a kind of it's an engagement tool, isn't it, to drive people in.
Activity again, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not a just transactional.
Yeah.
Actually, for that older consumer, and let's face it, neither of us are Gen Z by any stretch. But for that older consumer as well, you're seeing things like only last week we were writing about the fact that Selfridges is opening a private members club. That's not going to be Gen Z. I mean, that's going to be their high net worth individuals, big spenders. They're going to be invited to be members, and it's going to be something like the Arts Club or Soho House on top of Selfridges. And you can hang out there all day. And if you look at their loyalty scheme, they're rewarding people for spending time in their cafes, spending time in their restaurants, going to their cinema. There's definitely this move now. And we've been talking about experiential retail for ages, but definitely feels like it's shifted another level in the past 12 months. So, that's across all age groups. It's quite interesting, isn't it?
And the first time I heard about that was a new role, a community manager or a community team. Then I thought, we're on the right track again.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think everybody's been speaking about it for a while, haven't they? They've been saying, the ones that are going to succeed on the high street are the people that are able to do more than just a shop, and we sort of, we talked about it for ages and we knew that that's what had to happen, but it felt like people tried to do it and didn't quite make it. But now you're right, with the news from Selfridges the other day and, with all these other people, like I said, opening cafes and all that kind of stuff, I feel like now they're actually doing it and they are creating these kind of, amusement parks almost for retail. It's good to see. Yeah,
it is. I think it's got to be a bit more meaningful than it once was, because I think people thought experiential retail was having somewhere where you could just go and take a picture of yourself and put it on Instagram. So we saw a lot of Instagram-friendly shops. They all ended up looking the damn same, didn't they? But that's not really true community, as you say, Eric. And I think honestly, there's a financial reason for doing this, an economic reason. If you look at consumer spend, particularly, and we'll get onto this a bit later, particularly in the luxury space, a lot of that spend was getting shifted towards hospitality. So they weren't spending the money in these swanky department stores or designer stores. They were spending the money on holidays and restaurants and actually, private members clubs, if you will. So they've kind of thought, well, we better enter that market, because even if they come into our store and they don't buy a handbag, if they're buying a meal, if they're spending a lot of money on picantes at our bar, fine, that's okay. At least we've got them, and at least we can tempt them while they're walking through our store to go to those places. So I think it's a general reaction to that as well, that they've got to capture the spend that was drifting away from them towards hospitality. So it's interesting.
And are those the main changes that you see in consumer expectations? Well, when you zoom in on Gen Z and Millennium?
Well, the other one, the other big one, I think, you followed this more than I have, and because you actually are taking part in this economy, is the circular economy. They're not buying as much new. I'm not saying they're buying as much, because I think they're buying a lot, but they're wearing it and returning it quite quickly. And you do it, don't you, yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I read an article the other day on another business publication about how Vinted has become, I think it was in terms of sales volume, the largest retailer in France. And they're sort of fashion retailer, and they're kind of saying that that's because, yes, there's this need within Gen Z and everything for a more circular economy, which we know we all need to get to, but also it is that point of, well, if I've got these clothes that are lying around, I know I'm doing it. I've got some old stuff and I've really loved putting it on Vinted. It's so easy to use. It's like an ad for Vinted now, but it's so easy to use. You can just put it up and then, it's out there and you're doing good for the environment and good for your pocket. So I think that's why that trend is done so well. But I was so surprised to see that. But then just to caveat with that, I also read that within that top 5, also Amazon and someone else within the fast fashion world were also within it. So you've got to kind of look at it, I don't think it's just that. You've got to look at it, and take it with a pinch of salt, I guess.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not entirely sure. I'm doing talk on this next week, so this is a nice preempt to that. I'm not entirely sure that Gen Z is quite as motivated by sustainable concerns as we might like them to be, because if you look at a lot of what they buy, it is still quite cheap. It's still quite fast fashion. That's fine. Yeah. And they sort of kid themselves that if they just resell it quickly, somehow that's a sustainable thing to do. And I'm really not quite sure about that myself, but it's okay. But it's interesting that they don't see, at least they've got chucking it in the bin, right? There's that.
Yeah.
But they don't see these investments as long term. It's just like, I could turn it, flip it, make some money out of it, move on to the next thing. So it's a massive shift there, I think.
Yeah, and then within Bleckmann, we have been working for years on preparing for this more, environment friendlier, more sustainable way of doing business. And of course, now we are a hook, line, and sinker engaged on AI, and on what it can do for us. But when you look at the sector these days, I look at it completely different to what you do. Do you see that technology reshaping the fashion industry, or are we early adapters?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, one thing fashion's never been shy of is tech. I think it's quite, you look at the early days of e-commerce, it was all centered around fashion. And so this market is very receptive to that kind of thing. We, here in the UK, brands like Net-a-Porter, ASOS at the time, completely revolutionary, and they were all, far-fetched. Whatever happened since is another matter, but they all started here. So this market's been very quick to adopt technology, and seeing some very smart uses of AI, just in terms of, particularly from your side of things, Eric. What I personally know as a consumer, and I shop a lot. I shop more than I should, but there we are. Professional purposes and all that. Of course. I like the way AI has been applied to customer communications, because, and in fact, I'm kind of disappointed when brands don't have it. I love when I placed an order being kept in the loop, and I think AI is really good at that. The way they can send you smart updates on what your order's doing, or if you've got a query, they can deploy AI to answer that query very, very quickly. So all of that on the customer service side is really good. And then you're sort of freeing up your customer service people to give you a service, rather than to just tell you where your order is or where your refund might be. So in that sort of transactional post, I really quite enjoy what people are doing with AI. And also with an online shopping perspective, there's so much choice out there. It's actually sometimes a bit off-putting. So I'm not surprised sometimes people go to stores, but I like what people are doing with AI to just personalize that experience and just serve you up the brands, the styles that they think will suit you, and all of this great sort of fit advice that now is really, really very smart. So I'm quite pro it, actually. I'm quite pro. There's so much more that they can do, and I don't know if it's AI, actually. I don't know if that's quite the right use of this word, but I like how brands are using technology to track garments throughout the supply chain, particularly, do you know what I mean? So something's genuine, where it was made, each time it might have gone into the renewal workshop to be renewed and sent back again, they can add that data into it. So you've got, you can track the whole history of your garment. And
absolutely, and soon it will be needed to make sure that you adopt the new legislation.
Right.
So, yeah.
Exactly. Right.
You better prepare for it.
Yeah. The DPP. So I think it's changing things just dramatically, I think. I'm very pro it. I'm quite geeky.
Yeah. No, me too. I'm excited about it. I think we were talking to someone yesterday just about tech in general, but it does lend itself to the AI thing as well, about how, everyone's quite scared of it because they think everyone's all of a sudden overnight going to lose their jobs because robots are going to replace humans. But it's also about those things that, take too long just for a human to do, that if you now have something from AI, it can free that person up to do something more strategic or, whatever it might be. So I'm really excited about it. Now I've looked into it. At the beginning, I was like, oh my God, robots are coming to take over the world. But now I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be a nice addition to people's businesses, because anything that helps us move faster and grow is good, right?
Well, it assists brands in making sure that they spend their time and energy on stuff that they want to spend their time on,
Right.
and let AI assist them where needed and where possible. So it takes away some of the hurdles. But which other hurdles, the bigger ones, do you see currently for smaller or even emerging brands when they want to make a name for themselves?
Yeah, can get themselves out there. I mean, it's challenging, isn't it? I think it's such in some respects, technology, e-commerce, social media has been a great enabler, hasn't it, for fashion brands? It's made that barrier to entry so much lower, so much easier to get over. It's so much cheaper to get over. You don't have to have a shop anymore. You don't have to pay like rent. You don't have to sort of try to persuade all these big retailers to work with you. It's really hard. But on the other hand, because it's made it easier, quasi easier, the market is so damn crowded. So it's like, oh my gosh, how do you get seen? I think is probably one of the things that I think must be a massive challenge, because there is so much noise out there, and actually there's so much AI on the bad side of AI, so much bad AI generated social media out there as well. So people are flooded with low quality content on social media, and don't ask me the answer to this. I'm just highlighting it as a hurdle. but it's getting yourself seen amid all of that and finding that audience and, keeping them and growing that audience. It's got to be the biggest challenge, because you can spend an awful lot of money, I feel, with Meta and Google. And if you don't know what you're doing, that can be an awful lot of money just chucked out of the window, I think. So that for me, I think, is quite a difficult one. I don't know what you feel like.
No, completely agree. It just fills me with horror these days when, someone's got a great idea and they're bringing out a brand, but they haven't got the marketing dollar, because you remember at the beginning of Instagram, it was all so exciting because it was sort of like, oh, great, I can just build this audience and I'll just put it out. Now it costs an absolute fortune. And like you say, Lauretta, if you don't have that person who knows what they're doing and places it in the right place, and it can be an absolute nightmare. And so now one of the biggest costs to any brand launching is that marketing piece, isn't it? It's like building the customer base, because it's not easy anymore, and that's why so many people, they will go to a retailer to sort of be their first door, because they can just piggyback on their customer base. It's easier. But if you're doing it D2C, you've got to build all of that yourself, and then that costs an absolute fortune. Yeah. So it's tricky.
Drilling down on that media marketing aspect, in your views. So you to me are the experts. So
you're in trouble, Eric. You're in trouble. We're the experts.
Well, we are in media.
To your opinion, does today's fashion media report the news or create the news? And by doing so, do they influence which brands and which trends make it rise to the top?
It's an interesting question, because I don't know how you even define fashion media anymore, because we're business to business, so I don't count us in any of this. But if you're looking at consumer fashion media, those legacy brands that Ant and I probably consumed obsessively growing up, and actually well into our sort of 30s and 40s, because we were both obsessed with them, I would argue they don't have that much relevance anymore, because very few people anyway are buying magazines. And although I have seen some interesting launches of quite high-end irregular magazines, it's a bit something different, but there's that sort of monthly magazine that you would obsessively, I used to buy 7 or 8 of them every month, and absolutely through them, and they absolutely had ultimate power about which brands and retailers you would shop in. Even those weekly magazines that we had here in the UK, like Grazia, they had so much power. They merely had to just whisper that something might be a thing, and it would sell out. I mean,
self-fulfilling prophecy.
But it's been so diffused now by social media, hasn't it? So, but there are influencers, and there are some very, very good ones who work very, very hard and put out very high quality content. And they have a massive, massive impact on what people will buy and what people will wear. There's no question about that. But it's very tricky to, you can't say there's this one source or there's this 2 or 3 sources that really control it in the way that they used to. But social media does. It controls everything. It's just, again, as we said, finding, your way through the noise. And I think the danger of it sometimes, possibly more so in beauty than fashion, but maybe both, is you can be a complete success and have a viral hit on your hands and it's all fabulous, and then it dies. It's those brands that sort of burn white hot really quickly and for a short period of time that I worry about a bit, in a way, because that doesn't last. So you've got to do something to get that initial.
It's more of a hype than it is quality, sustainable.
Because they have that one SKU that maybe, goes viral and everyone's excited by it for, 2 weeks. And then they've got all this other stuff in the warehouse, but no one wants that. But I also, I'm on the other side of that whole thing. I feel a bit with social media and everything where now anyone thinks they're an editor. You know what I mean? It's like anyone can put content out. And it is a bit, I'm like, more power to you. Go do it. If you've got, do it and everything. But it is disheartening sometimes because, there are, fully trained journalists and everything that are putting out great content. And some people don't seem to understand the difference between it. And it's just like, look at TikTok. I mean, for God's sake, I am to blame. I look at it and I go, oh my God, Lauretta, did you see that thing? Apparently so-and-so's happened. And she's like, where did you get that information from? And then I realize it's not even real. You know what I mean? It's like, it feels so real when you're looking at it, but it's not even real. And it's like, so anyone can put content out these days. And I think that is what's happened to the Vogues and the Grazias and stuff, because people can't differentiate anymore to what is the real sort of zeitgeist, tastemakers, whatever, journalists, whatever you want to call it, to so-and-so down the road who just has a few thousand followers and said something's great, You
do still see, I think actually in some respects, brands, it used to be sort of not so much in their control because it was about whether you paid enough to advertise in these big magazines, whether they'd cover you. So at least now they can build their own narrative and their own stories with social media. And there are these big influencer brands out there. They change a bit, don't they? They ebb and flow a bit as to who they are. But it's just these sort of month after month, the ones that really do set the agenda. And they suddenly, like, why are we all suddenly wearing boat shoes, polo shirts? And it does happen, right? The trend, I worked in trend companies for 7 or 8 years, and I used to see things really early because of the environment I worked in, and I used to look at them and think they're not going to wear that. And then I stopped thinking that because actually they do wear it. And will be somebody in somewhere like WGSN or Future Lab or Future Snooze or places like that. They do go out and spot things and that's kind of interesting, and then they'll present it to the brands and say, this is quite an interesting silhouette, interesting shoe. We see a couple of these striped tops around. They'll pick it up and it ends up in store. And the brands themselves, with their social media and their communications they use, emails, what have you, in-store media is exploding. They can push trends themselves. They can push brands themselves. It's interesting. What's slightly different, I think, from a trends point of view, it used to be each season there'd be 2 or 3 things that everybody wore. It's much broader than that now.
Yeah. So you guys always have what we in the Holland call the finger on the pulse. So you're keeping tabs on what's developing, what's new. So thank you very much for your insights, and Lauretta. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. But you and the audience are more than welcome to join us for part 2, where we take a further deep dive in what's developing in technology in the industry. And so stay tuned and hope to see you soon in part 2.